The following program does not necessarily reflect the opinions and viewpoints of the staff and management of this station.
Welcome to the wonderful world of seniors, the best of all worlds. You now have the time, resources, and ability to enjoy what you have worked for all your life. So let's explore the many possibilities available to seniors on Senior World Radio. Senior World Radio is your source for senior citizens-related topics, information, and entertainment. Now, here is your host of Senior World Radio, Glenn Howard.
Welcome to a brand new radio show on the Eagle 1640 on your AM dial. I'm Glenn Howard with a show called Senior World Radio. Senior World Radio is not a new show. We've been broadcasting now for 6 years on another talk radio station here in the Oklahoma City area. Our first show actually was back April the 26th, 2008. But we call our show Senior World Radio because seniors today are living longer, they have better health, greater resources, more opportunities than any generation in history. It's a great time to be a senior. And for several years now, we have argued that seniors are young at heart and twice as smart. But today, since this is our first show on this station, let me tell you a little bit more about us, who we are, and what we have been doing. I guess probably the best words to describe myself is a educator, missionary, pastor. I've been doing all three of them. In fact, I remember many years ago, we were driving down the road, and my 5-year-old son sitting in the back seat popped up and said, "Daddy, what are you going to be when you grow up?" And Mama kind of laughed and said, "Well, son, I think Daddy's grown up, don't you?" And Chris said, "Oh, well, what are you then?" And I guess we've been trying to figure that out for about the last 50 years or so. But we've had a great life working and teaching both in public schools as well as in higher education. And then the opportunity of going overseas, working in missions in the great country of the Philippines. I did a degree out in Goodwell, Oklahoma Panhandle State University, so I'm a native of Oklahoma. Came on to Oklahoma City, did a graduate degree in the University of Oklahoma in counseling, even taught a couple of years up in Johnson, Kansas, and was able to take the first debate team to state. But we moved to Oklahoma City, and I spent a few years working as the Director of Development for Southwestern Christian University, a school that has moved to a new location but continues to do a great job. And when they started a new school called South Oklahoma City Junior College. Some of you may remember back in those days we called it Sock Jock. I think they've changed the name now to Oklahoma City Community College, and it's become, I guess it's the third largest school in the state of Oklahoma. But when I went to work for them, it was actually a vacant pasture with horses running around out there at the 7700 block South May. But one of the real exciting things for us is when we received the invitation to move to Manila, Philippines, and I became the director of Manila Bible Institute. I called it my preacher factory because it was a small school. When I actually went there, it was primarily a boarding school. We were bringing people in from the barrio, training them, sending them back out in the barrio, but I always felt like that ministry ought to go where the people are, and of course, Manila at that time had about 10 million people, so we got rid of the dorms and began just recruiting local students there from Manila, training them, putting them out in ministry, and well, what an exciting time it was. I remember particularly one old boy we got by the name of Noah Gomez, who got quite excited about doing ministry. In fact, he went downtown, found a basketball court out in the open where they started doing some singing and preaching, and before long he had quite a congregation going. And he came up to me one day and said, "Brother Glenn, we need to get a building because we're going in the rainy season. You know, in the Philippines they have two seasons, wet and dry. It's always hot." So I said, "Well, you try to find a building, I'll try to raise some money, and let's see if we can get something." So he started looking around and came back a few days later and said, "Hey, I found the place." So let me show you. So we went downtown and noticed he had this building here. It was a two-story building, and both floors were available for them. On one side, there was a snooker parlor, And on the other side, there was a place called Honey's Bath House. You know what that was. So between the snooker parlor and Honey's Bath House, we started the church downtown Manila. And that thing took off, and it was one of the most exciting ministries we've ever been involved in. We were there for 7 years. Not only was it a lot of fun doing the ministry there, but we were there also when Ferdinand Marcos was overthrown. In fact, we lived right across the street from Camp Aguinaldo, where the revolution took place. And I remember during that time, I had also been serving as the chaplain for the American Chamber of Commerce. We had to go up to our meeting one time, and as we started a town, the rebels, as they were called, were already gathered around. The military was there. They were hiding behind trees and rocks, and they looked like some kind of a movie set. And so we wound back and forth going to town for the chamber meeting. But I remember when it first happened, I came home frankly quite frightened because I saw Marcos tanks rolling down the street toward us. And I told my wife, we had 2 boys living with us at the time. Our 2 older kids had already gone away to college. And so I told my wife, get things packed, let's get out of here. We're going to Clark Air Force Base. This place is going up in smoke. So she threw a few things together in a suitcase. We got in the car and took off. And I don't think we had driven 2 miles until my wife spoke up and said, honey, do you really think we ought to be running? I said, no, I really don't. I think God called us. He can take care of us. We turned around and went back home, and we joined in that and participated. I say joined. I think participated is a better word. In fact, my office was actually located on the second floor of an office building right there on Edsa Boulevard where the revolution was taking place. And since I was working with the Chamber of Commerce at the time, we had a man who was with the CIA that actually used our office for communications center. And so we knew more of what was going on than we wanted to a part of that time. But to be able to watch the Filipinos work through a very difficult time, to see the changes taking place, it was an exciting thing. And all you've got to do is say the word Philippines, and you've got me excited and ready to talk about it. But in 1989, things began to happen around the world. That's when November the 8th, 1989, the Berlin Wall came down, and we had the invitation to go to Budapest, Hungary, to serve as senior pastors of the International Church in Budapest. That was an exciting time. We went over to Budapest, and of course, after 50 years of communism, the world was quite different. We begin to understand a little bit what communism is like, what socialism is like. In fact, we hear a lot of people talking about socialism, about government medicine. We lived under it for 10 years. We understand what it is, and I can get off track and start talking about socialism and all the problems with it. But the work in Hungary was an exciting time because not only did we understand the process of what communism had done to the whole Eastern Europe, but also got quite involved, particularly with the Jewish community. When we moved there, we found a house which was only about a half a block, really, from the Israeli embassy. And I had some people in the church who had a Jewish background. So I was downtown talking with the director of the Jewish agency, and I said, how many Jews are there in Budapest? He said there's about 60,000. But he said, if you use Hitler's definition of a Jew, which means one grandparent Jew, said we would have over 600,000. That meant in Budapest that 1 out of every 4 people had at least one grandparent who was Jewish. So we became very involved in working with the Jewish community, particularly knowing people in the church who had come from through the Holocaust, or at least parents and family had. They were survivors of it. And so we got very involved in working with Israel. Lecturing on it, I went to Auschwitz, Birkenau, most of the camps, spent a lot of time there, met people who had gone through it. And began to really develop an appreciation for what it meant for Israel to become reestablished in 1948 as a country. So even though I was there primarily as a pastor, I think the part that really impacted me more was the whole idea of the restoration of Israel of 1948, which, from my point of view as a student of the Bible, I believe to be the greatest fulfillment of biblical prophecy in the last 1900 years. Well, anyway, this made a tremendous impact on us. We continued to work with Israel. I started making trips over there. I've been there about 20 times. Came back here to the States in 1999, actually early 2000, and started serving as the associate pastor of the First United Methodist Church, downtown Oklahoma City. They're located on the corner of 4th and Robinson. But the love for Israel was very much a part of us. So I bought a big map of Israel. When I say a big map, I'm talking about a map that is 15 feet wide and 30 feet long. That's what you call a big map. We laid it out in the middle of the floor. I walked through the land talking about the history and geography of Israel. I often say if I can't take people with me to Israel, I'll bring Israel to the people. And we still continue to do that even yet, having a lot of fun with it. As a matter of fact, this coming week, next Wednesday, I'm going to be taking that big map of Israel way out in northwest Oklahoma to the great metropolis of Slapout. Yes, believe it or not, there is a town in Oklahoma named Slapout. It's out, I think their legal address is Laverne, but that's a post office box. But they're actually out on Highway 3, or they say on Highway 412. I think there may be 2 or 3 other names. But about 8 miles west of Slapout, there is a church out there called the Midway Church. And just about 2 miles south of Midway Church, there is a community center. And we're going to be going out northwest Oklahoma to the great metropolis of Slapout, laying that map out in the community center and talking an awful lot about Israel and having a lot of fun with it. So anyway, we're going to have to take a break in just a little bit. But today, since this is our first show, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself, what we're doing, the kind of work. And after we come back from the break, I'm going to tell you more about what our new show is going to be focusing on. And we're going to be asking your help to help us make it a much more successful show. So anyway, I'm Glenn Howard, Senior World Radio. I'm so glad to have you joining me here on every Saturday morning. We're going to be talking right here on the Eagle, and we want you to be a part of it. We're going to take a break. We're going to be coming right back, so please don't go away.
Everybody loves somebody sometime. Everybody falls.
Have you ever had a problem, but it seemed like there was no one who could help? You spent hours calling around, being referred from one place to the next. Well, not anymore. I want to tell you about a free and easy-to-use service in Oklahoma. 211 is a simple 3-digit phone number to get help or to give help when you don't know where to turn. Dialing 211 only takes a minute, and you are connected with a caring Oklahoman who will help you find the assistance you've been looking for. With access to over 13,000 programs, Heartline 211 can connect you to local resources for many different needs, including health care, food, counseling, rent assistance, disability assistance, job services, and much more. 211 is a service of Heartline, a United Way partner agency. 211, the right first call to get help or give help 24 hours a day.
Hi, my name's Jason Ledlow, president of UT Phone, the ultimate telephone service. We're proud to be a sponsor of Senior World Radio with Glenn Howard. UT Phone is dedicated to providing Oklahomans affordable telephone service all across our great state. We have Lifeline home phone service starting at just $1.95. That's right, just $1.95, and most of Oklahoma's seniors qualify for this reduced home phone service. They get to keep their old home phone number, and it even includes long distance. Another great feature of UT Phone's customers really like is that it includes repair service. That's right, any repairs at no additional charge. With many telephone services charging $40 to $50 per month, it makes sense to switch your service to UT Phone. This service is a federal program that is provided through the Universal Service Fund. There is only one per household, so make it UT Phone's home phone service for $1.95. Give us a call at 800-996-0098. Again, call 800-996-0098.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world.
And welcome back to Senior World Radio. I'm Glenn Howard, here today with a brand new show on the Eagle, 1640 on your AM dial. And I want to tell you, I'm really kind of excited about being on the Eagle because their office is up in Enid. They call themselves an Enid station. Their tower, I think, down here is closer to Oklahoma City, and they cover all of northwest part of the state of Oklahoma. I kind of like that part of the country. As a matter of fact, I was born out there in a little place called Galena. Now, don't go trying to find it because the only thing you're going to find in Galena nowadays is a cemetery, and I think half the people out there are my kinfolk. But Galena is about 14 miles west of a town called Alene, and when I was born, they wrote Alva on my birth certificate. I guess that was the closest big town around. So the idea of being a part of northwest Oklahoma is kind of exciting to me. But as we were talking in our last segment, the world has truly become an exciting place for us because after 7 years living in Manila, Philippines, working with Manila Bible Institute and going through the revolution and seeing all the problems as Marcos was overthrown and watch that country make its transition, we then went to Budapest, Hungary, in 1990 and spent 10 years as senior pastor of the International Church in Budapest. A lot of fun, a real introduction, though, more to Israel than just to Budapest. We love Budapest. Budapest is probably the most beautiful city in Europe. We've traveled throughout Europe and seen most of the places, but Budapest is just an incredible city. We lived up on what was called Roshadom or Rose Hill, looking over the beautiful blue Danube, or the Duna River as they call it. I don't know how they come up with the idea that it's blue because it's quite brown. But anyway, it's a beautiful river and a beautiful city. But during those years when we really got involved with Israel, and as I mentioned in our last segment, we have this big map of Israel, 15 feet wide, 30 feet long. We lay it out in the middle of the floor and walk through the land talking about Israel and about all the scriptures referring to the restoration of Israel, because I truly believe that the very existence of Israel is a testimony to the reality of God and to the fulfillment of Scripture that indicates we are certainly living in very interesting and unusual times, to say the least. I mentioned we are going to be out in the northwest part of the state, way up west of Laverne, about 8 miles west of the great metropolis of Slapout. I've always known there was a Slapout because historically my dad reminded me that he was born in a dugout just a little bit south of Slapout. So for me to go back to the land of my fathers is really quite exciting. We're going to be there at 7 p.m. Wednesday evening, April the 9th, and a church called the Midway Church. It's out west of Laverne on Highway 412. There is an activity building about 2 miles south of Midway Church, and we're going to be putting our map out there and getting a chance to talk about Israel and to renew acquaintances and to make new acquaintances in the great metropolis of Slapout. So come out and join us, if you would, on Wednesday night, April the 9th. But I want to tell you a little bit more about the particular show we're doing now, because the show we've been doing for the last 6 years, called Senior World Radio, has been an opportunity to try to bring in some very influential people. For example, we had the former director of the CIA. We've had several senators, members of the House of Representatives. We've had a lot of politicians, people in various positions. In fact, next week I'll tell you a little bit more about some of the particular people we've had and some of the things that we focused on. But after doing this for 6 years, we've been going out and doing what we call road shows. We go into the retirement centers, independent living centers. We have met hundreds of seniors, and I have discovered that every senior has a story to tell. Some of the most exciting stories I think I have ever run into is visiting with seniors and letting them tell you about their experiences, where they've been and what they've done. So we decided to make a switch in our show and start talking more about seniors, trying to find those people who have stories to tell and give them a chance to tell their story on radio. And that's what Senior World Radio is going to be involved in the future. As I've mentioned this to a few people, it's been interesting. Everybody that I talk to says, hey, you need to meet so-and-so, and they give me the name and phone number of somebody, and well, we're trying to contact them and to follow up and to get a chance to interview them and put their story on the radio. And I want to invite you to do the same. In fact, let me give you a phone number. We've got a phone number that you can call anytime, any place. It's a Watts number that you can call free. The number is 877-875-0990. Let me repeat that number again. If you got a pencil and a paper, write it down. I want you to make note of this number because I want you to call me. I want you to tell me about people that you know, people in your neighborhood that you visited with, you've heard their story. Some of the stories, of course, are very exciting. People who have done great exploits, accomplished great things. Others are really kind of tragic. Some of them where people have gone through extreme difficulties, but they've come out on the other side successfully. We just want to have the stories of seniors and call attention to Oklahoma's incredible seniors. That phone number again is 877-875-0990. And you can ask for me. I'm Glenn Howard, and I want you to get in touch with me. Tell me your story. Tell me about your friends. Tell me about your people. Let's get a chance to get better acquainted with them. When I mentioned this the other day, I had a few people immediately who said, oh, really, you need to see this person. And one of them was telling me about somebody who his accomplishments during World War II was just unbelievable. As a matter of fact, he had been able to discover some of Hitler's secret storage tanks. Another one had been involved in actually helping liberate some of the camps in Germany. I talked to another person who said, you need to talk to this lady who was living in New Orleans when Katrina came in and destroyed her home, her family, everything else. And she was lost and finally wound up here in Oklahoma and has discovered she kind of likes living here in Oklahoma. But just very interesting stories to tell. And so I want you to give me a call, tell me the kind of stories of people that you know, and let me go out, meet them, visit with them, and record some information about them. Now, I must confess to you, of course, as we've been talking about, I do have a bias. I'm very prejudiced for Israel. Really, it's not because of Israel, but it's because of God. I believe that God is doing something significant in His world today. In fact, I've had a real opportunity to visit with a couple of people that greatly influenced me. One of them is Avi Lipkin. Avi Lipkin is an Israeli who formerly worked with the Prime Minister's office. He also was a spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Force, written several books, but I've spent a lot of time with him. And as Avi has talked about what's going on in Israel, the threat coming from the Islamic world, the problems that Israel faces, Israel should not exist from a natural point of view. The very fact that it does exist says that God is certainly involved in this whole process. And so listen to Avi talk about all of these things. It's been very interesting. And sometimes when he comes through the country, we try to get him on our shows and talk to him. I do think we're also going to have an Israeli ambassador coming to visit with us probably in the next 30 days or so, so I'm going to try to get him on the show if I can. But my interest primarily is seniors and God. And I kind of think they go together because I've tried to tell our seniors, we argue, first of all, that seniors are young at heart and twice as smart. But I've always argued that the seniors have a responsibility to the world to try to teach the next generation and to remind them of the things that's really important. You know, I think one of the great dangers that people are facing today is we've got young people who think because they know more about technology and are more educated on computers that somehow they're smarter than the old folks. But I got news for you. There's some things you don't learn except through experience. And the School of Hard Knocks teaches some valuable lessons, and particularly lessons about truth and honesty and character and integrity and God and the things that's really important. So in this show, we always try to emphasize those kind of things and bring on people that's going to help encourage the values and the qualities of life that is really important to our society. So anyway, today is the first show on this station, not the first show of Senior World Radio. We've been doing this now for 6 years, but the first show on this station, and we're excited to be on it. The Eagle is a great station. They're bringing on some very interesting people to give some insights and understanding into the world, and I hope you'll just set your radio dial on 1640, push that button that locks it in, and keep it there and tune us in quite frequently. And again, seriously, I hope you will give me a phone call. Tell me about people in your neighborhood that you would like for us to interview and tell their story on the radio. My phone number again is 877, grab a pencil and paper now and write this down, 877-875-0990. That is a free number even for long distance, so give me a call from any place. Tell me a little bit about it, and let's get a chance to get better acquainted, talk about the wonderful world of seniors, and just have a lot of fun from now going forward, and as we say in the church, until Jesus comes, because it's just a lot of fun to talk to our friends and everybody about the wonderful world of seniors. So again, I'm Glenn Howard, Senior World Radio. I want you to join me right here on the Eagle every Saturday morning. We'd love to have you just be a part of this show, and tell your friends, tell your neighbors, join us. Let's have a great time being together. Thanks again for joining me. It's been so much fun to get together with you on this show. I hope you can come out to Slap Out next Wednesday night. Be with me, and we're going to lay that big map out and get a chance to talk about it. And I'd like to shake your hand and get a chance to meet you. But until this same time next week, be kind to one another. Love yourself. You're important. We'll see you next week.